Hi, welcome to the CaLew Perspective. Hi, John. How are you doing
Hey
today?
Harold, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Well, I think we got a great topic here that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah,
Norms, social
social
norms.
norms. Yeah,
What do you think about that?
I think that's a good topic.
It's a lot
It's a lot to cover
in a
because I
short
think you
amount of
could,
time.
yeah, I think you can go through a lot of different things and talk through a lot of different types of norms that we have in today's society and then all over the world and in the past and the future.
Yes. Well, we
So,
don't think about it,
no,
but I mean, every day we are performing these norms and we
exactly.
just kind of go through them.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things that sort of made this topic, I think, something that was interesting for us to sort of throw on the table and then
yeah, I
maybe
think
talk
so.
to you guys about too as well. So,
Yeah. So social norms, so a norm, social norm, shared standard of acceptable behavior. The common shared standard of acceptable behavior.
that's sort of what I had too is
Yeah.
acceptable behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there are unacceptable behaviors
For
as
sure.
well that still,
Were those
falls into
called
that.
anti-norms?
They, but
What are they?
that's a good question. Maybe
Anyways,
some of you
okay.
guys could
Yeah.
tell us, email back to us and let us know
Non-norms?
what.
I don't know. Okay.
No norms.
No norms. Yeah.
But in any case, there were four types of norms that were sort of in a category, and these are not just the only ones, but
Yeah.
these were sort of the main thrust of the ones that sort of things fall under.
Okay.
And the first one that I remember it being was called folkways.
Folkways.
Yes, and it had a series of different norm types that fall into that. The second one
Okay.
was one where it was called Moors.
Moors.
Yes,
Mores? Moors?
correct.
Okay.
And then we have taboo.
Okay.
Taboo is
Yeah.
another norm
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we all are going to be familiar with
Yeah, of
too as
course.
well. And then the fourth one was laws. The laws that
Okay.
we have on the
That's
books
funny.
that
You don't
basically.
think of norms as
No,
laws,
you don't.
right? You
No,
don't.
no.
But that's
Well,
I
it's sort of the thing that sort of gives the structure to
yeah.
day-to-day life.
Hmm.
I mean, when you have these laws, because if you did not have those laws and it was just norm, what would be norm? What
Yeah.
would be the normal
What would be the norm?
way to go about?
Chaos. Would
Yes,
chaos be
chaos.
the norm?
Exactly. That
Yeah,
would
we don't
start
want
to be
that.
that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
but let's dive in a
Yeah,
little
let's dive.
deeper
So
here.
what?
So,
So what are the first one was folklore? What was the first? Like,
well,
give us some examples of
an
those so we can talk
example
through what that is.
of it's like folklore is meeting. For example, these terms we sort of learn these things early in life. I
Yeah.
mean, we start out going through, and then they become sort of things that we sort of uh, pick up as we are starting to grow older. So, for example, folklore would be shaking hands.
Shaking
When you
hands.
meet someone for the
Greetings.
first time, greeting. I
Greetings.
mean, you don't think about it, but we
No.
go through this and we do this sort of as a learned behavior,
Yeah.
as sort of a cultural standard. It becomes that norm type
Yeah.
thing. Another one is checkout lines in the stores. I mean,
Hmm.
you think about that for a second.
Yeah.
When you get in the store, do you just cut in to the front of the
No,
line, or do you
you
get in there?
organize
But you do that without even thinking.
without even thinking. Yeah.
Now, in some places, they don't do that.
Really?
They don't. I mean, you just kind of like move your
It's a
way into the,
free for all.
you just kind of move your way in, and,
Yeah.
and whoever's in there in that space. And you could be, I've been in places where they just kind of moved in there and you were like, I was used to saying, okay, orderly.
Yeah. Orderly for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so those things can change for, I would say, cultural
Cultural.
wise. In
Yes.
different places, they
Right.
have different standards, different ways they look at things, and that's
Hmm.
the norm for them.
Right.
Then another one is, for example, you sneeze. We all say
Yeah.
this.
Oh,
Bless
bless
you.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. Or
Right.
gesundheit.
Gazoon. Yeah.
That
Wherever
kind
you're
of thing.
from.
Yeah, wherever you're from, and so that becomes sort of the norm. And you almost do that
Yeah.
without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but those are a few
That's
examples of
interesting.
that right there. And what is
Those are
called,
interesting norms.
folkways.
Folkways. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just kind of that everyday
Yes.
kind of maybe even like holding a door open
Yes, that is.
would be
It
something,
falls
right?
in that category.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Would simple things like please, thank you, and you're welcome, are
those
those
fall into
norms?
that.
Same
Yes,
thing?
those are norms.
Folklore
Yeah,
norms.
absolutely. Culturally.
Cultural.
Now, in some of the cultures, they don't even do that.
Yeah.
And so, that sort of seems strange for them.
Right.
Even to say hi, to
Uh,
pass by and say,
how are
hello,
you?
how are you?
Yeah.
And that becomes,
I've heard
that's
that
normal.
before that especially in America, the hey, how are you
Yes.
is if that's the social norm here in the US. And when we say that, right, we're not really like, oh, really tell me how you're doing, right? Isn't that
Well,
funny?
it's funny because that reminded me of saying someone said this years ago. They said, when I say, "How are you?" I
Yeah.
don't want to
I don't
hear
want
how
to know.
you
Yeah.
really
I
how
don't
you are
really
doing.
want to
I
know.
just
It's a
it's
greeting.
greeting,
It's
and
really a
that's
greeting.
normal.
It's normal greeting. Yeah.
And so if somebody was diving in and said, "Well, I'm glad you asked me," you start to dive into that, you kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to ask you
Yeah.
that."
Yeah. I didn't really
I
mean
did.
how are you? Like, I just want to know if you're good.
So that's
That's it. And you just say good usually, right?
yeah, it's
How are you? Good.
good,
Like you,
and that's a norm.
well, look, even our opening is always, hey, Harold, how are you
And
doing?
I meant
And
that
he's,
though.
yeah, but we mean it
I
too.
wanted to hear more about
Yeah.
how you're doing,
Yeah.
but well,
Anyway,
that's
sorry.
another
Yeah.
topic.
But
Any
yes, so
case,
those social norms. So that's funny that you did, the everyday stuff you don't really think about is kind of the norm.
yes.
And if it doesn't happen,
Then
you
you sort
know,
of feel like, okay,
what
well,
happened? What's wrong with you?
right,
Like what? Are
exactly.
you really
You
having a
must
bad
be having a
day?
bad day or something.
Yeah.
This person didn't even say hi or
Right.
anything like that,
Right. That's weird. Yeah.
So,
But I guess, like you said, culturally, like you said, like I've heard reading, different things and around the world that Americans are super friendly just
yes.
because we say, hey, how are you?
And then that now that kind of brings it to a point where, like in New York City,
Hmm.
you could say in New York City, for you to do that is sort of like that's against kind of the
Oh,
norm
yeah.
of
Yeah.
what they
Okay.
do on the
Okay.
street. They don't really necessarily say, "How are you?" or
Uh-huh.
that kind of speak to you. It's
Hmm.
kind of like,
Just walk by and go.
yeah, the norm is to walk by. So, we one of the other topics on that is what is called Moors.
Moors.
Yes.
It's funny when you say more. So I'm probably dating myself too. But when I hear the word Moors, I think of a Seinfeld episode.
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever.
no, I can't say
I think
that.
it's the Bubble Boy episode. If
Okay.
anyone knows this, where the answer to a trivia question was the Moors,
Oh,
but it was misspelled to the Moops. And George Costanza kept saying, "No, it's not the Moors, it's the Moops." And he thought it was the Moops the whole time, but it was the Moors, and the Bubble Boy lost
oh.
anyway. I'm dating myself. I
So
know.
when I,
If it's
so
a
when
Seinfeld
so
episode, when
when
I
I
hear
see
Moors,
that,
I
that's
hear
what popped
Moops.
in. Okay.
Moops. Yeah,
Should I say
Moops.
that?
It's fun.
Okay.
No, I don't. It's not.
Well,
Anyway,
with that, I mean, we don't know necessarily Moors, and we don't think about it, but that sort of falls under morality, the kind of thing that is either right
morality.
or wrong. It's not against the law,
Right.
but it's sort of like against cultural expectation. For example,
Okay.
uh, wearing black at a funeral.
Okay.
Okay,
Culturally acceptable
that
here
is
in
acceptable
the U.S.
in
Yeah.
that. To do something otherwise,
Hmm.
meaning wear white or wear pink or a bikini for that reason
Oh yeah.
to a funeral is
Different.
sort of
Taboo.
against.
Almost taboo.
It's
But it's
right
saying
in
offset, but
right in
Moors. It's the
it's right
Moors.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
category. So that's where the more sort of falls into
Right.
that category.
And I get that we could be cultural as well, right? Because
Yes,
I know
absolutely.
for some of this, the Asian countries, it's
Yes.
white,
Okay.
right, that you wear for
For
funerals.
funerals.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the expectation. So if
Right.
you wore black, that would be
It would
against.
be against the norm. It would be
Okay.
against the more,
That's
whatever. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
So
So that's where, in a sense, we start looking at norms and we
yes,
say that they differ in different regions or different
culturally,
culturally.
regionally,
Yes,
globally, by
exactly.
countries. Yes, correct.
So, and then the third one was taboo. Taboo is kind of
Taboo.
a
That's a big one.
big subject there
That's a big one.
because there are a lot of things that are taboo
Yeah.
in that regard, for example. And it says the social and religious cultural customs of prohibiting or even forbidding discussions
Mm.
of a particular subject or person or place or thing is taboo. Now, when you think about that, it kind of falls into, it can even come down to family,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. Family.
certain things. So, a good example of taboo that everyone can probably identify with is, typically you have one spouse, and that is what you have. To
Yeah,
have multiple spouses is taboo,
that's true.
you know?
Yeah.
And so,
And
in
that's
that,
also legal now.
well,
Sorry, illegal in the U.S., right? And
yes.
probably most of the world. I would imagine. I don't know,
Okay.
but I would think, right? But I don't know. Maybe, yeah, definitely the U.S. as
Well,
far as I go.
I know in an area in the U.S., they had at one time where you had multiple
Yeah,
wives,
for
and that
sure.
was sort of accepted,
Right.
and it wasn't taboo. But
Religiously
outside,
accepted.
religiously, yes.
Right.
But
Legally, maybe not, but religiously.
legally, I believe,
Legally.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in that, it was sort of like the norm
Yeah.
in a
That was
sense.
the norm. Yeah.
But
Right.
then outside of that, it was taboo to have that.
True.
We also look at taboo as being sex before marriage.
Mm.
That was always like taboo.
Mm.
You couldn't really, you weren't supposed to, and you
Sure.
didn't even really touch each other in
Yeah.
earlier
Yeah. For
times
sure.
because that was against the
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 norm.
norm.
Right. Right.
And so that was sort of taboo. So if you went out on a date or you sat on the sofa
Yeah.
with your girlfriend or your boyfriend in front of your parents,
Yeah.
you didn't touch each other because it
Right.
was taboo to do so.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
times sort of have changed over
Right.
the course, and that is not so much that it's taboo to do that as much as it once was in
Right.
that regard.
Yeah. But those are good examples of, kind of those things.
So what else do you think would be sort of a taboo of,
Taboo.
yeah.
Going back to family, right?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that there are things that that you don't discuss within family
Okay.
sometimes,
Yes. Yes.
right? Like, there's those family secrets
Oh,
that
you've
you have,
always heard of those.
right? You're like, oh, we heard that this happened to this person or this person did this or right. And it was a taboo to kind of bring
To
those
bring
up.
those discussions up. No one
Right.
talked
No
about
one
it.
talked about it
Yeah.
because it was a taboo. It was like, oh no, and I get it, like why people don't want to talk about it. It could bring up some bad feelings and
Yeah.
emotions and things like that. But it also, you know, it drove those like, oh, ooh, well, it's a secret. It's a
Yeah.
dark secret, and maybe in today's society, it's not as dark as people think because there's so much that goes on with
Right.
this world now that is that people are more aware of, right?
Well, that sort of, reminds me of when, as a kid,
Mm.
there were certain things that I didn't really necessarily talk with my dad or my mom
Mm.
about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of you can identify with this in earlier times. You didn't talk to your mom or your dad about sex,
Yeah.
or even for that reason,
Relationships, even
relationships. No, you
relationships.
didn't.
Hmm.
It was like sort of that was kind of
Yeah.
like off limits.
Yeah.
And it's like you always say, Mom, Dad, you can't, you asking
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was taboo in earlier times. Now I think we sort of seeing that
It's
change
changing.
more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember seemingly it was not heard of this tell your mom, well, tell your dad, really. You could tell your mom, but you really didn't say. I remember not really saying to my dad, and when I was younger, that I love you,
Oh yeah.
because it showed kind of a sign of weakness in a
Yeah.
sense as a guy
Right.
telling another guy that you love them,
Yeah.
and
And that's funny. Yeah, like you bring that up as one. I think we briefly talked like, well, men showing emotion
yes,
is a not. I wouldn't say it's taboo.
that used to
It
be.
used to be. Yeah,
Yes,
maybe it used to be.
you couldn't cry.
You couldn't cry, right?
As a
Men
youngster,
don't cry.
men don't cry, and they were taught
Men
that
don't cry. Yeah,
as young boys. From
exactly.
that point on, it's like
Hmm.
you fell down, get up, tough it up,
Tough it up. Walk it off.
walk
You're
it off.
fine.
You're
Don't
fine.
cry. Why are you
Don't cry.
crying?
Yeah.
Why are you crying?
Yes,
Like it hurts,
and it's
right?
tough
I'm
it
hurt.
up.
That's why I'm crying. Like that's the natural emotional reaction.
Right. And so
But
we
showing emotions, yeah, was definitely
right,
one
was
that
against that
was
was
against. I think for me too, right, growing up in that generation of not showing emotion. My
you were
dad
called a
also,
sissy, or you were
yeah,
called a wimp,
whatever,
or that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. You're
And so
weak,
yeah,
and you're
you're
yeah,
weak.
yeah.
And so I sort of looked at that, and then it's kind of interesting because as I got older, I started to move out of that. I started
Changes,
to change my
changes,
thinking,
yeah.
and I remember telling my dad, and it was really tough for him to
Uh-huh.
reciprocate,
Ah,
but I kept working on him.
yeah,
I would tell him, Dad, because I wanted the last time that I talked with you, if I didn't talk with you again, that the
yeah,
last thing that I said to you, that I love you,
yeah. That's good.
and so I wanted that. And so I did that and I implemented that. And it was interesting that over the course of time, I would get that same response back from him.
Ah,
Yes. And
so
I
it
think he started,
took a little
I
time.
think he
Yeah.
started to realize that it did not demean his stature of being a man
Right.
to say that emotionally you
Yeah.
could say that and still have that sort of masculinity
Hmm.
not diminish, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it's funny you say that too, because you know, with me and my dad, same thing, right? Growing up, we didn't do a lot of hugging and,
Yes.
you know, I love yous and all that stuff, you
Yeah,
know, that you do.
the guys would they
No
would do
way.
this real slight hug
Yeah,
and
the bro hug,
yeah, the
right?
bro hug that
Even for your own dad, right?
yes. I mean,
Uh,
just you were like, okay,
but my
well,
mom showed emotion,
yes.
so she would always hug us, kiss us, you know, hold our hands, you know,
So
things like that.
it wasn't taboo for that. That didn't
No,
change.
no, and
But
then
it,
so yeah, and then so it's funny because we used to drive when my mom used to drive us to school. Me and my two sisters. You know, when I would be in the front, whatever, you know, she would actually drive with one hand and hold my hand with the other
oh, okay.
the whole way, right?
Yes.
And I was like a kid, so one, I was like, I don't want to hold your hand. Number one, two was like, why? Right? Like I didn't get, you
Right,
don't
right,
get it.
right.
You don't get it at all, right? Thinking that way. And then growing up, of course, my mom was way more affectionate, hugs, kisses, you know, all that fun stuff. So then when I had my kids, uh, I now am the same
Showing
way
that
that my
sort
mom
of
is to me, is as I am if I any chance I get, they're getting hugged, they're getting kissed. I don't care what they say.
good,
I'm showing them,
good,
right?
good.
It's okay. I want to show you my emotions. I want to tell you I love you every time I see you. I love you. Um, Kiss them,
Because you
hug
just
them.
don't know. I
You
mean,
just don't
just
know.
that moment and then
Yeah,
everything changes.
yeah.
And
You just don't
so
know.
that sort of, it kind of moves everything in a different way.
Yeah,
So yeah, you have
exactly.
to
You
sort
have
of
to.
take that advantage of
Yeah.
that right now, especially now, I think because everything is shifting,
Yep.
we're starting to see more. We talk about these taboos and we kind of walk away from the aspect of what it used to be.
Yeah.
And so showing affection doesn't mean that it demeans
No.
you as an individual, male or female, for that reason.
Right. And it
So
takes time, as as you saw, like the story with your dad.
yes,
It took till till almost the very end to
to
say
really
for
start to
him to
see that
see that it's
it's
okay.
okay
Right.
and to feel comfortable
Exactly.
in that
Yeah.
space. I would say one of the things too that is taboo, or we sort of is like, for example,
Hmm.
how do you greet a female
Yeah.
for the first time?
Right.
Do you shake
Shake
hands? Do
hands. You
you,
hug.
is it
You.
what is the off limits
Yeah.
in that regard? If
Well, it's funny because I lived in Hawaii for a little bit, and when I would in Hawaii,
okay,
right, the norm was to kiss on the
okay,
cheek, right?
yes, yes,
Just nice. It's a friendly
yes,
gesture, right? So when I would meet different, people, people that I was closer with and that I'm familiar with, right, friends, not just like nobodies,
yes,
it's the it was a kiss on the cheek. Hey, how are you? Right?
okay.
And it's not
There was nothing beyond
nothing
that.
beyond that. It's just, hey, this is how we show our affection of our socially, that we're friends.
Okay.
And that was a change for me because that doesn't happen in California, right?
So it's taboo
It was taboo,
to
right?
do that.
Because you just don't
Yes.
do that.
No, that's amazing.
You shake your hand or you say hello and
And that's
you
still
move
sort
on.
of
And that's
the norm.
that
It's
is the
still
norm, I would say.
so to do anything beyond that is
Yeah. But
taboo
culturally
for
for
that.
that,
Okay.
in Hawaii, and that was the culture of it,
Okay.
it's perfectly acceptable and no one's bats an eye at it because it is what it is. That's it. It's a greeting and you're showing your affection toward a friend. So that's it.
Well, I would say that in taboo, there are so many
Hmm.
things that are off that you don't do in the norm
Hmm.
that are taboo
Yeah.
that we could go on
Oh, forever.
forever and,
Yeah.
still be talking about that.
Yeah.
But some of the examples that, for example, taboos in America,
Mm.
and I wrote down a few of these. It says one that don't forget to tip your server.
Oh, yeah.
That was
That's a
that is
big deal now.
yes, that's
Yeah.
taboo for you not
For you
to.
not to. Yeah.
Yes,
That's a big deal
and
now.
then the other one was do not brazenly talk about politics.
Again, another hot topic right now
Oh
because
my
because
gosh.
of,
We just went
elections
through
and
a
stuff.
whole
Yeah,
bunch,
exactly. The
yes.
cycle of
And you
elections.
just did not
Yeah.
brazenly stand out and talk
Yeah.
about what it was because
Exactly.
people were so on edge with that.
Right. Yeah. I get
Um,
that.
then and this is kind of an interesting one too, and I didn't think too much about it. It's kind of like, but do not drink alcohol in public.
Hmm.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, I never thought of that. And I remember one day, standing on the side of the street in LA, and we were waiting to get inside this little, it was an event that was going on in a smaller, it was a small theater.
Uh-huh.
And they were serving, so they were serving drinks inside. But
Yeah.
I didn't think, and I thought, well, we brought these little shot bottles, and I thought I would just pop this open and I'll drink this little thing before I go in.
Yeah.
And somebody said, you can't do that
Yeah.
on the side of the street. And I
Well,
thought,
yeah, it's illegal.
oh my gosh, I didn't think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That was taboo,
Right.
and that is taboo
Yeah.
to do that. It's against the law in a
It's
sense.
against the law. Yeah. Yeah.
And then one of the other things, do not make racist or sexist jokes. That is taboo.
I mean, that's still probably, yeah, that's definitely
And
taboo.
even though we
Yeah.
do step across the line
Oh,
and people
yeah.
do
I
this,
think so.
it is
but-
taboo to sort of do that, and people
Yeah.
kind of feel a little bit off balance being,
Yeah.
in that space at
Right.
that time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and then this is one that I didn't really know about,
Hmm.
or at least I never thought about it. It says, don't joke about the country. Yes. And I was like, oh, yes.
Interesting.
When I found that, I thought, wow, I didn't realize that
Yeah.
that was taboo.
I
But
mean, I
then
get it.
guess
Unpatriotic or,
absolutely. I mean, I
that's.
guess when you think about it, maybe just the fact that so many have sacrificed their lives
Yeah.
for the freedoms that we have here, to joke about
Right.
the country would be sort of joking about
They're lost
their
there.
loss,
Yeah.
their loss, and the families
Yeah, I
that
see.
lost these
That's
people.
interesting.
Yeah, I
I've never
didn't
heard
think
that one
about that.
either.
I hadn't, so.
I haven't heard
And
that
then
one.
last couple that I have, one here
Mhm.
that I think everybody probably knows this: do not discuss guns
Oh.
in airports. It's
Well,
like
yeah.
long time ago,
saying
you could talk about
bomb.
that. Even a bomb,
Don't
yes.
say bomb.
Don't
If I
even
got a bomb
mention
in the
you do
airport,
that.
yeah, you
Well,
get
you mentioned-
arrested,
just
thrown
mention
out.
bomb.
Yeah. Oh, heck
And
yeah.
somebody thought, oh my gosh, you mentioned
Because it's,
gun.
well, yeah, and
Absolutely.
everything's gone through,
So
right?
that is
whole
taboo.
thing. Yeah. Oh, I would
Okay.
agree. I would agree on that one.
And then the last one that I had here, and this is kind of interesting too, is that do not eat before your host arrives.
Ah,
Now, I never thought about that, but
yeah, I could see that.
I
though.
mean,
'Cause when you're always,
respect.
yeah, when you always go out, right? Especially in like a business setting too. If I'm going out with my coworkers, we
Yes.
usually wait until everyone gets their food and then we can start eating.
Okay.
Not necessarily waiting for a host, but just making
Right.
sure everyone gets their food.
Before
And there's
you
always
start
that,
eating.
but there's always that awkwardness too, right? Because everyone's like, "Oh no, you guys can just go ahead and eat, right?"
Right.
Okay, I'm eating.
I've seen
Right?
that
Like I'm
many
doing it.
times.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one.
And then I guess that takes us to now what is the final one that I had
Yeah.
here that I wanted to mention: laws.
Laws. Okay.
Now, we don't think about that, but
Yep.
these rules, are put in place to conduct and define what is considered
Hmm.
good, right, and important in society.
Right.
Now,
Yeah. Again, you don't
think
think
about
of laws
No,
as
as a norm. But
and a
then,
norm is a law.
yes, so is it okay? Now, when I point out saying in the US,
Yeah.
we typically drive on the right side of the road,
Okay.
correct?
Correct.
And
That's
then
a law.
if you drove on the left side, breaking the norm,
Yeah.
it would be against the law.
You'd be
would it
against the
not?
law.
So the law dictates the normal state of driving on the right
Yeah.
side of the road.
Right.
That's kind of one of the things you don't think about.
You
because
don't think about
you
it,
go through this, you learn this behavior. It is normal nationwide.
Yeah.
Now we can go through, and there are some countries that I've been in where you drive just anywhere. Just, you can be on almost going head on with certain traffic, and I've been in at
Yeah.
least a couple countries that
Right.
I can, and it's interesting because when I come back to the US, it feels like, oh man, this is normal now.
It's normal. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's your
You never
norm.
think about that.
But their norm is that.
Yes.
So when
And
they
they were
come
used to
here,
that.
they would be like, "Why is
Oh,
it like
how is
this?
it, and
How
they're
is it so like
absolutely.
organized?" Yeah.
And so those norms start to trickle into
Yeah.
other areas. And
Exactly.
you never thought about that. But
Interesting.
then I bet you never thought about, for example,
Hmm.
the, let's say, for example, breaking the speed limit.
Speed limit.
Yes.
That is against the law to break the speed limit.
Yeah, it is. But that's normal. I
Yeah.
mean, and the laws stipulate what is normal in this zone,
Yeah.
but we break that.
Break it every day.
And then in LA,
Everyone breaks it every day.
LA
Oh my
is,
gosh.
I mean, is it normal to drive at the speed limit
No.
in LA?
Normal is, I want to say it's 80 miles an hour. That's the
That's
norm.
the norm.
65, please get over to the right.
And even if you're driving at 65, chances are you're
You're
probably
going
going
to
to get
get
run over.
passed. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You
Well,
maybe
then,
even
yeah.
stopping traffic.
And then you think about like when you're driving on the road, you're going over the speed limit. You see a police cruiser coming up, right? Or
Yes.
you wonder why everyone's starting to slow down a little bit. And you see people slowing down, but you always got people just going like
Yes. They're
past.
still moving.
They're moving, man. And then the officer, the police car, the highway patrol, whoever it is,
Blows past you.
blows past you, doesn't do anything, just blows past everyone. You're like, I could just keep going above the speed limit.
So that becomes kind of that. I'm going to say is more becoming gray,
Yeah,
in
definitely
that sense.
gray.
Even though we know that you're not supposed to
Yeah,
exceed that speed limit in
right.
that zone. We
Exactly.
do that, and so the norm becomes almost where you break the speed limit to be with the normal
The
traffic
flow.
flow.
The flow, yeah.
Yes,
It's what our society's
it's
dictating.
it's moving in that regards. Don't
It's
ever do
over.
that if
Yeah, don't break the law.
that's
We're
not
not
something we're
encouraging you to
saying.
break the law. Just
Okay.
we're just going with the flow, you know?
And
So
then I bet you never thought about the employee manual at work.
employee man. Yes,
Yes,
okay.
that is law to
That
have
is the
that,
law.
and it is the norm for you to have that.
It is.
And I mean, we never think about that. It's just,
Right.
okay, they gave this, but that is what is expected by law for it to be normal.
You have to have it.
Yes, I thought that.
You have to have it.
Or now, no running sign
Uh-huh.
posted in the swimming pool area.
Hey, but that's safety too. Like you got to think about all those things that we're talking
Yes,
about. We're talking is like safety
these are
related.
laws.
They're laws
Those are the
because
norms.
it's because something bad happened
that
to
set
somebody.
those.
You have to set those laws,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Somebody ran and cracked their skull, and
And then it was like,
forbid, and
okay,
it was
we
like
gotta,
somebody got sued, and then
and we have
that's
to
a
set
law
this
now.
out. That's law.
Right,
But it's,
right.
it's a normal thing now.
It's a
Do
normal
not
thing.
run.
Well, I
And
yell at my kids all the time, don't run at the pool. And that's what
and
I
we
was
do
yelled at
this.
when I was young,
Yes, of
right?
course,
So
it's
it's
because
been there for
and I
many.
remember seeing that when I was young. It was like, don't run in
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
pool
So
area.
don't run in the pool. I get that. Slick floor. You're gonna fall and hurt yourself.
So now with this last one that I'm thinking,
Okay.
gender norm.
Gender norms.
Yeah, what do you think about that one?
That's a
loaded
good
one.
one. That's a loaded topic.
Yes.
It could be a topic of its
It
own.
could go by itself,
Could be.
So,
But yeah, gender roles have definitely changed. Gender norms have definitely changed over the
yes,
years. I think, when I was again growing up, they were pushing, it was females at home, men are the breadwinners, men are the ones that are doing
yes,
all the
and
work.
that was the norm.
That was the norm.
Yeah,
I think today's changed.
it has.
You have families that where you have to. I mean, it's required now that people both parents have to work because
Yeah.
they need them. One is the money because they got to pay for a house, they got to pay for a car, they got to pay for an education, they got to do all those things.
Yes.
And I think that
And so
led.
you're seeing that more now as a normal.
It's a norm now, yeah. Like the
compared to
women
what it
in the
was.
work field is a
Mhm.
norm. And I think if you were to look at different statistics about women in the workplace, you'd see that probably is a norm.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about how many leaders that you have now,
Yes.
women leaders that you have now in
They're running
companies,
big corporations.
running huge corporations, Fortune 500 companies, and so on and so forth. I've got just thinking about where I work.
Astronauts,
You got astronauts,
pilots.
exactly.
That's
It's those things that men were the ones that did.
Yes,
those in
they
the
were
past. They were
dominating.
in dominating in that field, and now it's like
You're seeing
more and more
I mean,
women.
even when we break it down to even the military,
Military,
you've got officers now that are female
high-ranking,
high-ranking,
very
officers,
high-ranking
yeah.
officers now.
So we're seeing that gender transition
Mhm.
happening now, and the paradigm shift of all of that.
Exactly,
So
and it takes time, generations
does.
again, right?
just
we were
like
talking
with
about.
our parents,
Just
it's
like
kind
with
of
our
like
parents,
watching
it's going to keep
that
going and progressing and pushing forward, and we'll see a lot of world leaders that will be women in the future. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
So
I'm
great.
looking forward to it. I've been waiting since the Jetson days.
Jetsons.
The Jetsons. I'm dating myself. Don't.
Judy Jetson?
Yes, I've been waiting for all that to start to happen now. And
Oh
I keep
man.
waiting for the United States to finally have its first female president.
It'll come eventually, right?
That's what they're
I
telling me,
think,
but I've been waiting
I
a long
think
time to see it.
it will.
And I'm thinking, well, I don't know.
Maybe, hopefully in our lifetimes, right?
I'm
I think
hoping.
that's what we hope for.
I have a couple of more days left. And anyways, that's
Um,
gonna do that because we can keep talking
we
about
could talk. So just
this.
quickly,
Yeah.
let's talk real quick about different norms, beauty
Oh, yes.
standards, right?
Okay.
Just appearance norms.
Yes.
I think that was
Oh,
one
that
thing
is
that we wanted to touch on
that's kind
too.
of in the well, I
It's
wouldn't
not a
it's
taboo.
not no, it's not. But it used to
Used to be,
be sort of
right?
in that.
So like yeah, so if you think of just like the beauty standards that have evolved and
Okay.
changed over the years, generations, decades, just kind of thinking back to my youth and
Okay.
what I saw, right? You always saw, specifically for women, these tall and slender,
Yes.
very slender, like, they're twigs compared to today's society. They're just super skinny. Again, nothing wrong with it, just different, right? And then that was the norm in that era. Me growing up was just, hey, you got to be, oh, you look like a model. That would
Correct.
mean if you're
Correct.
6 foot tall and weigh 100 pounds, right? Whereas I think today's standards
It's
for
changing.
men and women both,
Yes.
I think, because men, again, it's the same with men, right? And those times you saw the men were all huge, right? They
Right.
worked out, they were strong, they were buff, they were cut, they
Yeah.
were all this.
Yes.
And then today's norms are different, where it's more accepting of the normal person.
Yes. I mean,
It's normal.
because I mean, when the advertisers, when they were looking at it, they were saying you can look like this,
Right.
and now it's like, no,
No,
look,
I look like I
yeah,
look like.
exactly, and people
And that's
are
okay.
accepting
Yeah.
of that. So
And
we're seeing that transition, that paradigm
we're
shift
really
in
seeing
that
that
mindset.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's good for society. It's good for
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah.
Because everyone's different. No, there's not any specific,
I think
person that is.
advertisers are now, and I would say that maybe the sort of the shift in the vision and perspective on advertisers
Yeah.
are actually shifting to look at more what
Yeah.
people are
Well,
seeing of themselves.
I think that's true.
Okay.
And of course, I think it's always comes down to the money.
Yes. Well, that's what
That's
they're
what's
saying,
selling now,
but
right?
yes, but
Because
think
that's
about
the
it. If
norm.
you
That's what's changing it.
if you're talking to a greater
Hmm.
group of people
Yeah.
to purchase your product,
Exactly.
you're going to include them.
Right.
Okay, so that becomes the norm now,
Right.
as opposed to what it used to be.
Yep.
Where it used to be taboo is like if you were heavy, you couldn't even think about it.
No, exactly.
So don't even
What's a
think
size
about
extra
that.
large, right?
Exactly.
Like you never
So,
could do
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So
So that's an interesting topic, right? I think we can go on for
we
a
can.
long time on that, but
So
we want to just touch on that, and
well, we'd love to hear
great, yeah.
if you have any thoughts that you could share with us
On the
on
norms,
your
yeah.
thoughts. Yeah, on that would be love to come back to this topic at a later date and hear what some of you might have to say
Right.
about that.
So, wrapping up here, we end with kindness. I wanted to highlight one of my all-time favorite tennis players, Rafael Nadal,
Oh, okay.
retired.
He just retired. Yes,
Just retired. He had his last match, Davis Cup, represented his country of Spain. We'll put a little clip in, but he was really gracious in his final speech, right? He said he wanted to be remembered as a good person from a small town in Spain.
That's awesome.
And that achieved his goals. And you
Kindness.
just think about he has everything in the world that that anybody could ever want. But what he wants to be remembered for is being a good person.
That is too awesome.
And achieving his
And,
goals.
and I applaud that because we need more of
Yeah,
that,
for sure.
especially in this day and age.
Oh
We
yeah.
cannot have enough of it.
No, not
So,
enough at all.
with that, kindness.
Kindness. Follow us
Love
on socials, our social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube,
Yes.
Spotify.
We look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. We'll see you.